James Ramirez became one of Call of Duty's most beloved characters without even saying much, and that's because the internet turned him into the ultimate soldier meme. Serving with the 75th Ranger Regiment under Sergeant Foley, Ramirez became famous for the running joke, "Ramirez do everything," based on the 56 scripted orders Foley gives him during Modern Warfare 2's campaign. The meme originated on 4Jans before spreading across gaming culture, turning Ramirez into a symbol of the overworked soldier who somehow gets assigned every impossible task. Despite being a silent protagonist with almost no dialogue, Ramirez represents the ultimate everyman soldier, who became more memorable than speaking protagonists through pure community engagement and meme power. His legacy proves that sometimes the most iconic characters are the ones players create through shared jokes and cultural moments that transcend the actual game contents. Russell Adler is the CIA operative who committed the most horrifying act in Call of Duty history by completely erasing another person's identity through advanced psychological torture. And the worst part is that he genuinely believed he was serving the greater good. As the master manipulator behind Bell's false identity, Adler used MK Ultra techniques to brainwash a captured Soviet agent, erasing their memories and implanting fake American loyalties to hunt down Perseus. Adler represents the American equivalent of Soviet mind control programs, showing that both superpowers were willing to destroy human consciousness in pursuit of intelligence advantages. His character explores the ethics of psychological warfare, and whether creating a fake person through torture could ever be justified, even to prevent nuclear war. Adler's calm professionalism while committing psychological war crimes made him more disturbing than screaming villains because he treated identity destruction like routine paperwork. Master Sergeant Frank Woods is arguably the most important supporting character in Call of Duty history, and the fact that he literally cannot die has become his defining trait. Born March 20th, 1930, in Philadelphia, Woods ran away from home as a child and survived on street smarts before joining the Marines and becoming the franchise's most durable character. He participated in virtually every major Black Ops mission, the Bay of Pigs invasion, Operation Flashpoint, Vietnam operations, and survived being presumed dead multiple times across decades of warfare. His famous line, "You can't kill me," became iconic because he literally survived impossible odds throughout the series. Explosions, betrayals, wars, and even accidentally killing his best friend Alex Mason. Woods represents the franchise's commitment to long-term character development, appearing across multiple games and proving that supporting characters could carry emotional weight across entire story arcs. Sergeant Foley is the U.S. Army Ranger leader who gave James Ramirez all those impossible orders, and Keith David's commanding voice performance made him one of the most memorable military leaders in franchise history. Serving as acting commander of Hunter 2-1, 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment throughout Modern Warfare 2's American campaign, Foley led his squad through the most intense battles of the Russian invasion. From training Afghan National Army soldiers alongside Joseph Allen to commanding the assault to retake the White House, codenamed Whiskey Hotel, Foley demonstrated exceptional leadership under impossible pressure. His tactical expertise became legendary during the defense of northeastern Virginia, where he successfully coordinated Rangers against overwhelming Russian forces, including BTR-80s and Mi-28 gunships. Foley's most famous moment came during the EMP aftermath when he shouted, "Shut up! Get a grip, Corporal. Our weapons still work, which means we can still kick some ass," perfectly capturing his ability to maintain morale during seemingly hopeless situations. His relationship with Corporal Dunn and Private Ramirez demonstrated effective small unit leadership, balancing tactical guidance with emotional support during high-stress combat. Foley represents the archetypal American military leader, competent, decisive, and protective of his soldiers, while maintaining the discipline necessary for combat effectiveness, establishing the template for future Call of Duty military commanders. Private C. Miller was the American protagonist in Call of Duty, World at War's Pacific campaign, who showed that silent protagonists could still have complete character arcs when surrounded by the right supporting cast. Miller fought with the U.S. Marine Corps through brutal island-hopping campaigns including Makin, Peleliu, and Okinawa, experiencing the psychological toll of Pacific warfare through some of the franchise's most visceral combat sequences. Unlike many silent protagonists who felt like empty vessels, Miller had a clear character progression showing his evolution from naive recruit to hardened veteran through the horrors of jungle warfare and Japanese resistance. His story demonstrated the franchise's ability to handle different theaters of World War II with equal emotional weight, proving that the Pacific campaign could be just as compelling as the more famous European front. Sergeant Tom Sullivan was Miller's squad leader who provided leadership and emotional grounding during the Pacific campaign. and his sacrifice represents one of World War II Call of Duty's most impactful character losses. Voiced by Chris Fries, Sullivan served as the moral center and tactical guidance for Miller's missions, showing how good leaders could maintain humanity even in the brutal Pacific theater. His death scene showed how supporting characters could create genuine emotional stakes that made players care about the outcome of battles beyond just completing objectives. Sullivan proved that Call of Duty could handle meaningful character deaths that felt earned rather than manipulative, establishing a template for tragic mentor figures that the franchise would use repeatedly. Dmitry Petrenko was the Soviet protagonist in World at War who fought from Stalingrad to Berlin alongside Viktor Reznov, but his true importance to the franchise only became clear when he died horribly in Black Ops during a Nova 6 gas experiment. Petrenko's character arc showed the brutal Eastern Front through a personal lens, emphasizing brotherhood with Reznov and survival against impossible odds during the Soviet push to Berlin. Tragically, Petrenko was betrayed by General Dragovich and used as a test subject for chemical weapons, dying in agony while Reznov watched helplessly. His death became the driving force for Reznov's revenge plot against Dragovich, making Petrenko crucial to the entire Black Ops storyline, despite being killed off-screen. Petrenko represents how supporting characters could create emotional stakes that lasted across multiple games, proving that heroic deaths could motivate entire storylines. Private Chernov served as the narrator and moral center of World at War's Soviet campaign, and his diary entries created one of Call of Duty's earliest experiments with meaningful player choice. Chernov judged the player's moral decisions throughout the campaign, creating different endings based on your actions toward German prisoners and civilians during the Soviet advance to Berlin. His character represented the franchise's early exploration of moral choice systems and player agency, asking whether revenge and brutality were justified even against Nazi Germany. Chernov proved that Call of Duty could handle complex moral themes about the cost of war and whether victory justified becoming monsters, setting up philosophical questions that would define later games in the series. Corporal Tank Dempsey is the American member of the original Zombies crew who turned undead survival into comedy gold with his legendary one-liners and became the emotional heart of the entire mode. Born to be a stereotypical tough Marine, Dempsey was captured during a failed rescue mission at Verrucht Asylum and became one of Dr. Richthofen's test subjects in Element 115 experiments. His quotes like, "Die, you blood-sucking slack-jawed maggot bags," and his constant trash-talking made him a fan favorite who brought humor to horrifying situations. Dempsey represents American military bravado at its most exaggerated, but his character evolved from simple comic relief to the emotional core of the Zombies storyline's themes about friendship and sacrifice. His brotherhood with Nikolai, Takeo, and even Richthofen showed that Call of Duty could create genuine emotional connections between characters, even in the most absurd circumstances. Dr. Edward Richthofen is Call of Duty's most complex villain turned hero, and his character arc across multiple timelines proves that the franchise could handle sophisticated time travel narratives and redemption stories. Originally a sadistic Nazi scientist conducting Element 115 experiments on living subjects, Richthofen's exposure to the mysterious element drove him insane and gave him glimpses of alternate realities. His famous quote, "The pages have changed," referred to his ability to see different timeline outcomes, making him central to the entire Zombies mythology and the fight against the Epicons. Richthofen evolved from cackling villain to reluctant hero across multiple incarnations, the original timeline's mad scientist, the Origins universe's more sympathetic researcher, and various other versions trying to save reality itself. His character proved that Call of Duty could handle complex moral themes about redemption, sacrifice, and whether terrible people could become heroes when the stakes were high enough. Captain Takeo Masaki represents the honorable Japanese warrior struggling with tradition versus modernity, and his philosophical approach to zombie survival made him the most thoughtful member of the original crew. Born into a samurai family, Takeo maintained his code of Bushido even while being experimented on by Richthofen, bringing dignity and honor to situations that should have broken lesser men. His philosophical quotes and dedication to traditional Japanese values made him the moral center of the Zombies crew, balancing Dempsey's aggression and Nikolai's nihilism with ancient wisdom. Takeo's character explored themes of cultural identity and maintaining honor in impossible circumstances, showing that Call of Duty could respectfully portray different cultures while creating compelling characters. His evolution across multiple timelines demonstrated how traditional values could adapt to modern challenges without losing their essential meaning. Sergeant Nikolai Belinsky is the Russian member of the Zombies crew, whose dark humor and tragic backstory made him the most psychologically complex character in the entire mode. Having killed multiple wives and survived Stalin's purges, Nikolai used alcohol to cope with psychological trauma that would have destroyed most people. His biography states that Stalin himself cannot stare Nikolai in the eye because of his fearsome reputation and the atrocities he committed in service of the Soviet Union. Nikolai represents how war breaks people and how they find ways to survive psychological damage through whatever coping mechanisms they can find. His constant drinking and gallows humor masked deep pain and guilt over his past actions, making him a surprisingly sympathetic character despite his horrific history. Nikolai proved that Call of Duty could explore themes about trauma, guilt, and survival without losing the entertainment value that made Zombies mode popular. Private First Class Joseph Allen participated in the most controversial mission in Call of Duty history, and his moral complexity comes from being forced to participate in terrorism to maintain his undercover assignment. Allen's involvement in the No Russian Airport Massacre while undercover with Makarov's cell explored themes of duty versus conscience, asking whether following orders justified participating in atrocities against innocent civilians. His character represented the cost of intelligence work and moral compromise, showing how good soldiers could be put in impossible situations where every choice led to tragedy. Allen's death at Makarov's hands wasn't just a plot twist. It was the inevitable consequence of a mission that required him to abandon his humanity in service of his country. His story proved that Call of Duty could handle complex moral questions about whether the ends justified the means in modern warfare. Viktor Reznov deserves recognition as one of gaming's most manipulative characters because he continued controlling the story even after his death through pure psychological warfare. The Soviet sergeant appeared in World at War as Dmitry Petrenko's mentor and leader, but his true importance emerged in Black Ops when it was revealed he had died in Vorkuta prison years earlier. Despite being dead, Reznov appeared as Alex Mason's brainwashed hallucination, counter-programming Mason's Soviet conditioning to target Dragovich, Kravchenko, and Steiner for personal revenge rather than American targets. Reznov represents the franchise's exploration of unreliable narrators and psychological manipulation, showing how trauma and brainwashing could make dead characters more influential than living ones. His ghostly presence throughout Mason's story proved that the most dangerous enemies were the ones inside your own mind. Jonathan Irons was Call of Duty's most prescient villain because he predicted the rise of corporate power over traditional government authority, and Kevin Spacey's performance made him genuinely charismatic despite his authoritarian goals. As the charismatic CEO of Atlas Corporation, Irons believed private military companies were superior to governments, and initially appeared as a benevolent mentor figure who provided Jack Mitchell with advanced prosthetics after Mitchell lost his arm in combat. His famous quote, "People don't want freedom, they want boundaries, rules, protection from invaders and from themselves," revealed his authoritarian philosophy that freedom was an illusion people would gladly trade for security. Irons represented the franchise's exploration of corporate warfare and privatized military power, showing how charismatic leaders could use genuine care for individuals to justify global domination. His character was terrifying because his logic wasn't entirely wrong. He just took reasonable ideas to fascist extremes. General Shepard became one of Call of Duty's most shocking villains because he represented the corruption of American military values in pursuit of national strength. After losing 30,000 men during the nuclear explosion in Call of Duty 4, Shepard felt the United States was perceived as weak internationally and orchestrated a complex plan to start World War III, so America could win a major war and restore its global reputation. His betrayal of Task Force 141, executing Ghost and Roach with his revolver before burning their bodies, shocked players with the famous "one less" loose end line that became gaming infamy. Shepard's motivations weren't personal greed or power lust, but rather a twisted patriotism that justified war crimes in service of American supremacy. His character showed that sometimes the most dangerous enemies were the ones who believed they were serving the greater good. Raul Menendez is arguably Call of Duty's most complex and sympathetic villain, because his motivations were completely understandable, even when his methods were absolutely horrifying. Born September 5, 1963, in Nicaragua, Menendez experienced childhood trauma when his sister Josefina was disfigured in a fire caused by American insurance fraud, and his father was later assassinated during CIA-sponsored activities. These experiences fueled his lifelong hatred of American capitalism and imperialism, leading him to orchestrate an elaborate decades-long revenge plot against the Mason family using advanced psychological warfare and manipulation. His Cordis Die revolution tapped into real anti-corporate sentiment, and his ability to turn Frank Woods against Alex Mason by forcing Woods to accidentally kill his best friend made him one of the franchise's most emotionally devastating antagonists. Menendez proved that the best villains weren't pure evil. They were people whose legitimate grievances had twisted them into monsters. Vladimir Makarov represents Call of Duty's most successful attempt at creating a villain who was genuinely terrifying because he had no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Originally a Russian paratrooper and Spetsnaz operative, Makarov was discharged after allegations of human rights violations during cleansing raids, but this only freed him to pursue his ultranationalist terrorism without military constraints. He became infamous for orchestrating the No Russian airport massacre, various international terrorist attacks, and his stated goal to tear the world apart piece by piece for no reason beyond chaos and destruction. Unlike Menendez's understandable revenge or Shepard's twisted patriotism, Makarov simply wanted to watch the world burn, making him the ultimate representation of evil seeking destruction for its own sake. His tactical brilliance and complete lack of moral constraints made him the perfect final boss for the Modern Warfare trilogy, representing the kind of threat that could only be stopped through violence. David Hesh Walker was Logan Walker's older brother and the emotional core of Call of Duty: Ghosts, showing how family bonds could survive even post-apocalyptic warfare. Voiced by Brandon Ruth, Hesh served as mentor, protector, and leader throughout the campaign, demonstrating strong loyalty to both his family and the Ghosts unit during America's darkest hour. His character was defined by determination, leadership skills, and sometimes impulsive decision-making driven by emotion, particularly after his father Elias was killed by the traitorous Rourke. Hesh represented the emotional heart of Ghost's story, taking on responsibility as the older brother and showing genuine care for Logan's development as a soldier. His character proved that Call of Duty could explore family relationships and brotherhood beyond just military unit bonds, adding personal stakes to global conflicts. Gabriel T. Rourke represents one of Call of Duty's most tragic character arcs, because he went from being the reason the Ghosts were feared to becoming the weapon designed to destroy them. Originally a U.S. Marine Force reconnaissance officer and the captain of the Ghost team, Rourke led legendary operations like Sand Viper, where his 13-man team eliminated an entire 500-soldier Iranian battalion and established the Ghost's terrifying reputation. But after being left behind during a failed mission, he was captured and brainwashed by Federation forces through systematic torture and psychological conditioning. The Federation turned him into the Ghost Killer, a weapon who used his intimate knowledge of ghost tactics to systematically hunt down and eliminate his former teammates. Rourke's transformation from hero to villain was devastating, because he retained all his skills and knowledge while losing everything that made him human. His character showed that the most dangerous enemies weren't strangers. They were the people who once fought beside you and knew exactly how to destroy everything you cared about. Lieutenant Gaz was the franchise's first truly memorable supporting character, and his death established the emotional template that every Call of Duty game since has tried to recreate. Serving as a member of Captain Price's SAS team in Modern Warfare, Gaz functioned as both Soap's trainer during the famous All Gillied Up mission, and Price's trusted right-hand man throughout the campaign. Voiced by Craig Fairbrass, Gaz was known for his dry British humor, tactical expertise, and unwavering loyalty to his team that made players genuinely care about his survival. His character established the template for future Call of Duty supporting characters: professional, competent, and genuinely likable without being perfect or invincible. Tragically, he was killed by Imran Zakhaev in the game's climactic bridge scene, making him one of the franchise's first major character deaths that actually mattered to players. Gaz proved that supporting characters could carry emotional weight, and that losing them could hit harder than any explosion or set piece, setting the standard for meaningful character development in military shooters. If you haven't seen Part 1, click here on the screen.